What I learned is successful people are willing to do what unsuccessful people are not. So I'm successful because I'm willing to do what you ain't willing to do. I'm willing to get up early. I'm willing to stay late. I'm willing to do that over again. And when I don't feel like doing it, I get up and I do it again. And that difference between me and you. I'm gonna keep going when I don't feel like going. You wanna go as long as it's comfortable and convenient. But then you wonder why you ain't got what I got. You ain't going where I'm going.
Welcome to another episode of Closing the Gap Podcast, where we strive to give you the truth about wealth. I am your host, Mr. Eddie Richardson, here with our other host and the owner of Hamilton Wealth Advisors, Mr. Wilbert Hamilton. How you doing today, my friend?
Hey, always blessed and highly favored.
Amen, amen, and amen. It's always great to hear that, and we thank you all for tuning in to another righteous and holy episode. Wilbert, we've been going through life, and we've been shooting these episodes, and we've been getting different calls and contacts with different people, and things are going on. Having different conversations with some of the clients coming to barbershop, man, and they've been really locked in to the episodes, really paying attention to what they are and aren't doing. I don't know if that's transferred into into you getting the calls that you need. I know that it's some of it is transferred into. I've seen a few more people coming to church. So I'm grateful to see that the message is not falling on deaf ears.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes,
The message is not falling on deaf ears. And so we try to give as much as God gives to us. And so we're grateful for it all. But as I've been listening to some people with some of the issues that they're looking at now is as a result of our show is, have they really laid out things like they need to, right? So they're really evaluating their situations and where they are, and that's good. I like that.
Yes.
But I'm gonna tell everybody: go ahead, put in the phone call, go to the website HamiltonWealthADV.com, set up your consultation so that Mr. Hamilton's employees, agents at Hamilton Wealth Advisors can go ahead, give you the proper analysis of where you are and lay out the plan for you financially. We're glad that you're listening. We're glad that you're taking an account of what you're doing, but without action, it's no good. Faith without works is dead. All right. So we want you to, while you have the faith in what we're saying, we want you to put in the work to call Mr. Hamilton and the Hamilton Wealth Advisors to set up your consultation today. And like we've said on previous episodes as well, even if you don't do business with Hamilton Wealth Advisors, we want you to have your plan laid out for you. Contact any wealth management firm that is properly licensed so that they can put you a plan together. We want you to do business with us, but mainly we want you to have your business in order, whether it's with us or not. Yes. Because what's more important is that you and your family are taken care of and that you manage the resources that God has blessed you with. That's what our main goal is, right? We're not here. Of course, we want you to do business with us. Of course, we want you to contact Hamilton Wealth Advisors. Of course, I want you to come and join New Grace Covenant Church and sit under my leadership and allow me to lead and guide you in your relationship with God. But if you don't, that's fine. As long as you have your finances laid out correctly with somebody that's helping you manage them well. And as long as you have somebody that's leading and guiding you in the faith. Because the important thing is when you have it in hand, then you can give it to somebody else. Yeah. Right. And that's the thing, the conversation that I've been having, Wilbert, is people are concerned about, do I have everything in place in the manner in which I need to have it so that I can hand it off to the next generation, my kids, and I don't have to worry about the government coming in and taking over my home, my car, giving away things, right? Mm-hmm. Don't have to worry about probate court, right? We was having a conversation before, we ain't gonna go into detail, but before we started recording this episode, talking about a situation where, based on where you live, how much money you end up making versus, what somebody can get from you. Yes. Right. And so the key is having the proper structure. Yes. So that you can make the proper handoff to the next generation.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where, we know better, we do better.
Mm-hmm.
And we're hoping that, we're providing you with a little bit more know-how. So hopefully you utilize that information
Yeah.
to do better.
Yeah.
So like you said, and, we all know the course faith without works is dead. So,
Mm-hmm.
just hearing us is not enough. We want you to take action. And
Yeah.
like I said, if it's not with us, it's with somebody. And preferably, I'm gonna just go ahead and say it. I want to be with somebody that look like us.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's good.
it's time out for us running to everybody else that don't look like us, and
That's a
wonder
fact,
why
man.
they're not supporting us, and then
Right.
you wonder why your situation is really not together. Well,
Mhm.
how much did the people that you went to care about you and your
Mhm.
family and your future?
Mhm.
I mean, if we can just call a spade here.
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
that's a fact.
there, we live in a world in a country where we have been purposely held back. Information has been purposely withheld from us. We've never been put in a situation where we could be the very best that we could possibly be, with a level of care and help and assistance.
Mhm.
They give you just enough to survive,
Mhm.
but not enough to thrive. So
Yeah.
we want to make sure that, look, it's a lot more likely that the people that look like you are going to have a little bit more care and concern for you, your family, and those future generations.
Mhm.
And that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
We're all going to do enough to take care of us
Mhm.
because we're all selfish enough that we want to be okay.
Yeah.
We want to have things for ourselves. We want to be able to buy the car we want, live where we want, dress how we want. We all want to accomplish certain things individually. But, for me, it's all about a righteous man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. So,
Mhm.
it's not just about saying it, it's about doing
Doing
it. So
it.
how do I do that? What roles and responsibilities do I need to take on?
Mhm.
What actionable items do I need to do and steps do I need to take in order to make sure I put my family in that particular position? And, it's not always financial.
Mhm.
It's how you treat your wife. It's
Yeah.
how you treat your kids. It's how you raise your kids. We talk about it on many occasions.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
me,
Mhm.
I have, having 3 sons, my role and responsibility is to make sure I raise my sons and put them in a position where they can go on and be great men of character and integrity once I'm no longer here.
Mhm.
So that's the goal overall,
Yeah.
is to make you
Yeah.
better than me and to help you be able to take care of yourself when I'm no longer taking care of you.
Mhm.
So, those are roles and responsibilities that, obviously we take on, and things that we want to make sure that, obviously the public and the people in the sound of our voices, understand and hear that, yeah, I'm always, talking about, the money, being the
Mhm.
minister of money, so to
Mhm.
speak.
Mhm.
But understanding that the money means nothing if you don't have your faith.
My.
We
Yeah.
have to have that first and foremost. And it's always funny when I talk to people, I hear and I come into contact with individuals that watch the show and
Yeah.
listen to the show. And they say,
Yeah.
man, you talk about God more, you talk about money. I said, man, because God is the reason for the season. I said, without God, I ain't got no money. The only reason I have what I have is because of God. So I
Mhm.
got to give credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
I can't omit the very reason
Mhm.
for me being here.
Mhm.
I'm sitting here because of God.
Yeah.
I'm doing what I'm doing because of God. I have the vision that I have because of God. So
Mhm.
for me, it's only about giving credit where credit is due. And as long as I'm giving credit where it's due and I'm, trying to stay locked in with God as much as possible so
Mhm.
I can continue to walk the path that He's laid out for me,
Yeah.
well, that's going to hopefully ensure more than anything else that my family, my generation to come are in a better situation.
Mhm.
So for me, I have to reevaluate myself
Yeah.
the same way everybody has to reevaluate their own individual finances. I have to take a self check. I have to
Mhm.
do an assessment, from time to time. I have to make sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing the same way I'm doing it for everybody else. So we want the people to understand that, none of us are probably where we want to be.
Right.
We all could be doing a little bit better,
Mhm.
but it's all about just starting somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's about taking that first step. So, we're thankful that they're listening. We're thankful that
Mhm.
people are tuning in and they're having a conversation. They come in the barbershop and they're, at least talking about,
Yeah.
giving somebody a call.
Mhm.
We want you to go ahead and always make that call.
Yeah,
So,
that's right. That's
because
right.
at the end of the day, information is meant to be shared.
Yeah.
We hear, I've all heard the old adage of, they say you want to hire something black people put in the book.
Mhm.
Well, we're the book live and direct.
Yeah.
We getting the information right from the book.
Yeah, we're
You
open
know,
books right
we
here.
open books here. I'm in the finance book, and I'm also trying to stay in that word,
That's right.
and
That's
you in that
right.
word. So we
Yeah.
got some information coming directly from the book that came directly from the source,
That's right.
because they said in the beginning
Mm-hmm.
that was the word, and God was.
God was the word. Yes,
God was the
sir.
word. So we want to
Yes,
make sure we
sir.
bring
Yes,
you
sir.
God and bring you the
Yeah.
word,
Yeah.
right here, live in the living color as much
Mhm.
as we possible can, because we know that's what's going to change the direction of a people.
Yeah.
We understand that we can't get where we want to go without making sure that we're in alignment with what God wants us to do. So, for me, first and foremost, it's all about just making sure that we, keep the main thing, regardless of your success, your highs, your lows, keeping God at the forefront at all times. Because it's easy when you start having a little bit of success
Yeah.
to lose sight. So we always
Yeah.
want to make sure that, you lock in and you lock and hold on to, the source, and the reason why you're going to have success, and the reason why your kids are going to have success is because you lay the foundation of trust. You lay the foundation of, seeking after him. Seek ye first kingdom of heaven, his righteousness, and all things will be added unto you. So we can just remember those verses, and we can just remember, because I know we got a vacation Bible school coming soon to New Grace Covenant.
Yes,
Well,
sir.
we gonna
Yes,
get the
sir.
kids back in there, and we gonna make sure they start putting some of these verses to memory, because we know you train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he old, he won't depart from it. So those are the things, and for me, really, those are the keys of life. Those lessons that we learn, at a vacation Bible school, or just going to Bible study, and getting up, going, before church, having to get up that extra hour. Mama waking me up an extra hour to make me go to the Sunday school before church. Even I got to go to Sunday school, and I got to turn around and go to church. Man, I don't want to do this.
Don't
But
have no evening service.
those sacrifices, I hate the evening service. Mama had to go. She was in the choir. We had to go to the whole another church. I said, Lord have mercy. Just drop me off at home. Is Daddy going? Hey, I want to go with Daddy. But when you look back at, what I learned and the things that I heard, I was able to remember some of those things. I was able to put some of those verses to memory. I was able to hear some of those sermons, even when I didn't understand maybe what the preacher was talking about, and I couldn't relate because I had not had enough life yet to really understand what some of those things meant. I didn't understand some of those screams and some of those hollers and some of those tears that's being shed. You don't understand as a kid, the things and emotions that are transpiring. But as you get older, you go through some things. You understand some of those tears. You understand, some of those hollers. You understand some people that's down on their knees thanking the Lord for all that He's brought them out of and all that He's done, for them. So, we need that, and we definitely want to get back to that. And we know New Grace Covenant is a place you can get that. So we want to, make sure, like I say, don't just call me, but come see, Pastor Richardson at New Grace Covenant in Bessemer.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Man, that's the key, because all that we're striving to do is here. We're striving to hand off a good financial background. We're striving to hand off good faith background and foundation, principles that everybody can live by. And so that's why we want to entitle this show today, this episode, The Handoff, right? Do you have everything in order so that you can hand it off to the next generation? What Wilbur just talked about was having that foundation in finance, and he always talks about faith. Conversely, I'm on the other side, right? I had a foundation in faith, but when I'm in church, I talk a lot about finances. When I got my master's in divinity, my capstone project was entitled God, Church, and Money. Right? And some people kind of looked at me a little funny. But I had to do that because money becomes taboo when we come talk about God. We think that we're just supposed to struggle, you know what I'm saying, when we are really faithful to God, as though we're not supposed to manage the resources that God has blessed us with. But when you look in the scriptures, the scripture is rife with many people that have much wealth. And God talks about managing what He has given us, right? Being good stewards of what you've been given. Parables about investing the money so that, when the owner comes back, the owner will have more, right? All of these principles are in the scriptures, but we like to run away from them, because we feel as though, we misinterpret the scripture, that, I'm saying that the love of money is the root of all evil, right?
Yes.
So we don't have to love it. It doesn't mean that we can't have it, right?
Correct.
What it's about is making sure that we don't put all these other things before God,
Yes.
that we have God number one. And that's why I entitled, my capstone, God, church, and money, because God is always first.
Mhm.
And the church is a place that should be teaching the people about how to manage the resources that God has blessed us with, and then being able to utilize those funds to be able to take care of the things that you have to take care of in the world, right? Like you said earlier too, dealing with us, right? And we talking to us, for us, about us. It's about representation. And when we think about the history of the African American church, well, when we came, was coming out of slavery and into the Reconstruction era, and we were worshiping, still worshiping with the slave masters in those churches, and they didn't want us in those churches. And so sometimes they tried to just give us some land and say, hey, go over there and worship. But our foreparents were wise enough to know that, no, I don't need to just take the land that you give me. I'm going to go by the law. I'm going to purchase this land outright so that I can have the deed, and we don't have to worry about you coming back and kicking us off of this land and taking this building, because we know how you dealt with us previously. So you know what? We're going to utilize the law. We're going to raise up our money. We're going to do everything that we need to do, and we're going to buy this land. And this land is going to be ours. It's going to be deeded to us so that we'll be able to hand this off to the next generation of worshipers that are growing up in this neighborhood. And so when we talk about faith and finances here on Closing the Gap podcast, these are the types of things that we want everybody to realize, is that we have come this far by faith, leaning on the Lord, because God in his word teaches us about every single aspect of life that we need to know. But when we don't read the word, study the word, then we're not able to properly hand off the information about God. And we just take word of mouth a little too much. But what we do here is, on Closing the Gap, is we've been trained in what we do. Wilbert has all the proper licensing to give you financial advisement. Hamilton Wealth Advisors and all of the agents that work for him have been properly trained. I have been properly trained in the word of God. And the thing about us is we are not just resting on our laurels. We're yet studying to show ourselves approved. You know what I'm saying? That we can rightly divide the word of God, that you can rightly divide financial plans to the people. Right? This is what it's about. We want to hand things off properly as we come on this show, because we want to make sure that we're properly aligned with God. That's first and foremost, right? Because when we are properly aligned with God, what that means is we are disciplined and we are dedicated to the work that God desires us to do. And we're making sure that every time we come, we strive to stay on topic. And we know a lot of times what we see on social media is a lot of people talk and they give a lot of, candy coated advice that's sweet, but in the middle is tart. And it's going to, you know what I'm saying? And it's not going to be any good for you. But what we strive to do is give you hearty, healthy, vegetable information, right? Whereas we're going to make sure it tastes good, but it's going to be healthy. It's not going to just be sweet and just give you something satisfactory right quick. No, what we give you is going to be everlasting, because God is an everlasting God. And so we align ourselves in that way. And the conversations that, like I led off with, that I've had with are really conversations about accountability, is what I see to people. So that's why I like the fact that the people are listening, because they realize that last year our theme was plan. This year our theme is alignment and accountability. And they realize that they need to make sure that they align everything correctly so they can hand it off to the next generation. And they're coming and having the conversations with me because they realize, okay, I've been striving to do some of these things myself, but I need somebody to hold me accountable. And that's what Hamilton Wealth Advisors does with laying out a plan for you and to follow. It's something to hold you accountable. That's what we do at New Grace Covenant Church as a body of believers and sharing in the faith together. Is to hold you accountable, not to down you in any way, shape, or form, but accountability is about growing
Yes.
together. And so we're going to hand this show off to the commercial break, and then we're going to come back and pick the ball up, and we're going to run again and give you some more good information. Welcome back to Closing Gap Podcast, Truth About Wealth. I am your host, Mr. Eddie Richardson, here with our other host and the owner of Hamilton Wealth Advisors, Mr. Wilbert Hamilton. And you're tuned into the show today entitled The Handoff. And what are we talking about with the handoff? Well, do you have everything properly set up, your house in order, to make sure that you are able to keep the courts out of your business, so to speak, and be able to give all of that you have to the next generation? Wilbert, in 2 Kings chapter 20 and verse 1, the prophet Isaiah goes to King Hezekiah because the Lord has spoken to Isaiah about King Hezekiah and told him to go and tell Hezekiah to get his house in order because he is about to die. That's a hard word, is to receive that the prophet comes and gives what can seem as though it's bad news because nobody wants to die, nor, but the good news in that is he had the opportunity to know when death was about to come. And God gave him the warning that, okay, anything that you have not done yet, go ahead and get all those things in order. So when we're talking about the handoff, we're talking about setting your house in order. We're not coming like Isaiah, so to speak. We're not telling anybody when you're going to die. But the fact of life is we're all going to go the way of death at some point. So we need to make sure that we have set our house in order, that what we own and what we have is able to go to those subsequent generations that are coming behind us. And take the example of Hezekiah, because also in Hezekiah, I'm gonna go ahead and give the next part of that story, even though we're really talking about setting your house in order so that when death does come, we are ready. Hezekiah, as a result of that, he got his house in order, but he also went and prayed to God. And when he went and prayed to God, God blessed him and added more years to his life. So setting your house in order, right? Even though things may be dwindling, your finances dwindling, it may seem like everything is about to come to an end. Setting your house in order is first and foremost, after you receive this message that we give, go pray. Talk to God about the things that you have, how you need to align them properly. What is it that you need to do within your personal life for yourself? What is it that you need to do in your life with your relationships? If you're married, single, whatever that is, have parents that are still living or whatever, kids, other siblings, whatever that is, ask God, what is it, God, that I need to make sure that I have in order within my life? That's first and foremost. And then after that, have the conversation with somebody like myself, a pastor, about your soul, to make sure that your soul is anchored in the Lord and you do live and trust in the salvation that has come through Jesus Christ in this moment. That's getting your house in order. And then taking care of those things that are in this world is having a conversation with Mr. Hamilton and his advisors at Hamilton Wealth Advisors to get your financial house in order, to make sure that you have everything that you need, because that is a big gap
Yeah.
that we have. And that's why we come here, Wilbur, is to close the gap
Yeah.
and help everybody properly hand off what they have.
Absolutely. You know, when you went into that story and gave the second part of that story, you know, what I heard or what I pulled from it, and just kind of what originally came to me was I heard obedience.
Mm.
Anytime I think obedience, it automatically registers, man, obedience is better than sacrifice.
Yes, sir.
And, you know, him being obedient
Mm-hmm.
to what God says, that look, your time is near,
Mm-hmm.
your time has come.
Mm-hmm.
Go get your house in order. And he went and got his house in order. And once he did what God told him to do, and like you said, he went back and he prayed, and God gave him greater later. He gave him even more. He said, you know what? Because you were obedient,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't believe if he was disobedient,
Mm-hmm.
God would have gave him
More
the extra
years.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he got more time
Mm-hmm.
because
He was obedient.
he was obedient.
Obedient.
You know, and those are, you know, those lessons and those stories always they always ring true.
Yeah.
You know, we can all relate and understand, because, you know, that makes sense.
Correct.
You know, if I do what I'm supposed to do
Mm-hmm.
and I operate a certain way and I honor God with what I'm doing, and I'm a good steward over what he gives me,
Yes, sir. Yes,
well,
sir.
it's probably going to help possibly lengthen my time. Here's the reason why. They say, you know, for the children, honor thy mother and thy father, so thy days shall be long. I want long days. So
Mhm.
I'm honoring my mother and father to this day.
Yeah.
You know, I'm trying to do everything I can to
Yes.
continue to honor
That is
my
excellent.
mother and my father. I want to hopefully try and make my mother and father proud,
Yes, sir.
so I can hopefully help lengthen their days and mine.
That's right.
You know, that's
Yeah.
the overall goal of
Yeah.
all of this. And I think, you know, a lot of times we complicate
Mhm.
life a lot.
Mhm.
And in reality, life is pretty simple
Mhm.
if we just listen to follow directions.
Yeah.
If we just take heed to what is being told to us.
That's
If
right.
we just slow down and listen to God and listen to the people he's placed in our lives, and, you know, make sure that we, you know, take accountability for our actions and make corrections when we need to, because we all make mistakes. And,
That's right.
you know, none of us get everything right. And, you know, but when you're honoring God, even when you're wrong, he can make you right. And that's the great thing, you know, about God, because he know we are all imperfect.
Yeah.
He know we all gonna
Yeah.
fall short. He
Yeah.
already knows that.
Yes. Yes.
So
yes.
he some mistakes are already built in.
Right.
You know, but that's the good thing about him, is that the mistakes are already built in, but the mistakes don't stop the success.
Mm.
The mistakes are a stepping stone to success.
Mhm.
You know, because they're hopefully lessons to be learned to put ourselves in better situations. So, you know, definitely, like I said, you know, honoring God, honoring mother and father, honoring each other, and honoring ourselves by, you know, taking action. Because I think on far too many occasions, we have when we have these conversations, and we start to do the self check and the accountability. We get to a place of paralysis,
Mm.
and it's always called paralysis by analysis.
Analysis.
We start to overanalyze, we start to question, we start to wonder, and we also kind of tend to question ourselves sometimes and wonder, is what I'm doing enough?
Mm.
Is what I'm doing really gonna matter?
Mhm.
And you have a lot of people that you know that I think want to do more and
Mhm.
want to leave legacies and want to
Mhm.
do the right thing, but they don't know if what they're doing is going to be impactful, and
Mm.
who is it going to help. And
Yeah.
I'm not going to worry about leaving money to this person, that person. I'm not going to worry about, they going to have to work and they going to have to figure it out. And I'm like, well, and I always relate it back to tithing,
Okay.
because I do believe that you know tithing is a issue for many individuals.
Mm.
And I believe it's an issue because on far too many occasions we worried about the wrong part of the tithing.
Mm.
We worried about what's going to happen with the gift that we give, as
Mhm.
opposed to being obedient and giving
That's good.
the tithe.
Yeah.
It ain't your job to worry
Yeah.
about what happens to the tithe once it's given.
Once it's given.
It's
Yeah.
your job to be obedient to give, so God can give to you.
Yeah.
So on far too many occasions, we're worried about the things that are outside of our control.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Control what you can control.
Yeah.
It's-
Control the
You
control.
can control getting life insurance for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You can control how much you save and plan. You can control picking up the phone to call Hamilton Wealth Advisors to set your appointment, to have a consultation, to receive the information necessary to put yourself and your family in a better situation. You
Mm-hmm.
control getting up on Sunday morning and going to New Grace Covenant so you can
Yeah.
get a word, so you can hopefully feed your soul, so you can hear God and start moving the way God wants you to move. So, we have to, be, a lot more accountable to ourselves in taking those steps. And I know more people are taking those steps,
Mm-hmm.
but we need more people to join them in taking those
Yeah.
steps. We need to make these conversations a lot more normal.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, money has been a taboo topic in our community for a long time, and
Yeah,
that's why we don't have no money,
Mm-hmm.
because it is a taboo topic. That's just the fact of the matter. Other communities have much more open and transparent conversations around money, finances, financial planning, estate planning, those types of things, because they understand when we know better, we do better.
Mm-hmm.
People perish due to lack of knowledge. You can't understand how to do if you don't talk to nobody to find out how to do it. You can't figure it out all on your own.
Yeah.
Nobody is self-taught. It just doesn't work that way. You have to assimilate with people of like mind,
Mm-hmm.
and people who are doing the things that you want to do in order to be successful doing certain things. And we just have to be better, because in our community, we have this gap, not because there's a lack of intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
but because there's a lack of execution. We have a lack of execution, because we're always second guessing. We're looking for reasons why not to do something,
Mm-hmm.
or we're saying, well, I feel like I've done enough. Well, who told you when enough is enough?
Mm-hmm.
There's no such thing as enough.
Yeah.
Because if I ask you how much money you want, you're gonna say more.
Yeah.
So it's no such thing. It's
enough.
no,
Yeah.
what situation do you want to see your kids in? Unfortunately, I come into contact with a lot of people, and I would hear men say sometimes, "Well, man, I ain't finna leave no bunch of money to my wife so some other man can enjoy, the fruits of my labor." I'm like, well, if you leave her enough money, she ain't got to bring another man in your house.
All right.
So if you want her to truly be independent,
Yeah.
leave her enough money where she can choose to be independent.
Mm-hmm.
Because one thing I do understand, there are a number of studies, and the numbers show 75% of women remarry because of financial pressure,
Mm-hmm.
because they need some assistance. So if you prematurely pass,
Mm-hmm.
have you left your wife in a position
Mm-hmm.
to be able to maintain and sustain things? Because that is your role now, right?
Yeah.
You are a provider in your home.
Mm-hmm.
And regardless of whether you here or not, you still got to provide.
Yeah.
That is part of the responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to leave it all up to your wife to provide for all of your kids and herself on her own?
Mm-hmm.
If something happened to your wife, do you want to handle everything on your own? No, you don't. So this, of course, this is a two-way street.
That's right.
We need to make sure that both parties are being equally valued and taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
So making sure that both of y'all have your insurance in check,
Mm-hmm.
making sure both of y'all have power of attorneys,
Mm-hmm.
healthcare directors. Like, oh man, what's that? Why do I need a power of attorney? I'm like, well, do you know what's going to happen to you in the future?
Mm-hmm.
What happens if you're in a car accident and you're in a coma? And a lot of husbands and wives have cars that are in their name only, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of husbands and wives have bank accounts that are in their names only. Nothing wrong with it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were to be in a car accident tomorrow, and all of a sudden you're in a coma in the hospital, and I don't have power of attorney over you, I have no way of controlling and helping you financially.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have access to your information.
Yeah.
So who has power of attorney when life happens
Mm-hmm.
to be able to handle certain things? So now that's prolonging situations. That's putting us in a financial predicament because I don't have access and control because I'm not the power of attorney. So it doesn't mean you don't have to make your spouse your power of attorney. You can have a sister, you can have a friend, you can have whoever you want to. But there needs to be an understanding,
Yeah.
and we need to know who that person is.
Yeah.
We need to be on one accord and making sure that all I's dotted and T's across. You have your stuff together, I have my stuff together. So in the event of something happening, you should not be scrambling and wondering what's going to happen with a car or with a house or with this or that during a time when you need to be praying to God because you are enduring a traumatic situation.
Mm-hmm.
See, these are things that we don't think about. We
Right.
wait till stuff happens, then wonder what's going to happen. I'm like, well, it's too late at that particular point in
Mhm.
time. We have to always think ahead. If we talk about that situation of you being in a coma from a car accident or whatever it may be, and there's a decision that has to be made medically. Who do you have a healthcare directive? Who has the right or the authority to make decisions on your behalf if you are not in a position to make them for yourself? So you don't want your family fighting over what you would want if something were to happen. It's your responsibility to operate and think ahead and say, okay, well, in the event of something happening to me, this is the person that I want to make the decision. These are the things that I want to have happen.
Yeah.
Some religions don't believe in blood transfusion.
Mm-hmm.
Some do. My wife knows she got to save me. Hey, ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Ain't no pulling the plug.
Right.
We're going to give God a chance.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to let God be God. And we're going to
Yeah.
let a miracle take place
Yeah.
if something were to happen. But some people have different wishes.
Yeah.
Do you know what those wishes are? So these are things that obviously we don't like to think about and talk about. And God forbid if something were to happen and we needed to handle something because we have a loss of a loved one.
Yeah.
Does your spouse know what you want to have happen with your assets?
Mm-hmm.
Does your spouse know where your assets are?
Mm-hmm.
There's been many situations I sit down with husbands and wives and they don't know all of the different accounts that each other have.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and sometimes it's not on purpose. It's you met at 35. You started working at 25. So you got 10 years of work history where you worked 5 years at one company, she worked 5 years at another. So that means both of y'all got 401ks at companies that you previously worked at
Mm-hmm.
before you met each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then you took another job. So that's another 401k that you started that you put a little money in. So that's 4 accounts
Mm-hmm.
that were established prior to you all coming together.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you get together and you decide to move somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And you all both get new jobs. So now each one of you have a new 401k. That's a total of 6 accounts. That's 3 for her and 3 for you.
Yeah.
Do you know about all of these other accounts that they have? Because I can tell you most people don't, because I meet with people who don't have all of their IRAs and 401ks consolidated from jobs that they've left 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, why didn't you move your money with you when you left and took the new job? Well, I just didn't do it. I didn't know. Or I didn't know I could, or I didn't know how. So if you were to pass away, who knows about that account?
Yeah.
There's money that you work for and earn, money that could be going to your kids, money that could be going towards their college education, or going towards a down payment on a new home for them when they graduate from college, that they will not receive because they don't know anything about it. Nobody knows.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd be surprised on how many occasions money is sitting and left unclaimed because people did not keep their house in order. And then something happens and people are left scrambling trying to find out who had what, because you don't know. So that's why it's so important to get your house in order, to have healthcare directive and understand the utilization of that, to have a power of attorney, to make sure somebody can handle your affairs if something were to happen to you. And then how do you want to handle the assets and who do you want the assets to go to? See, we're comfortable and familiar with, wills in our community. But I tell people all the time, wills leave bills because you still got to go through probate. A will does not ensure or guarantee that assets are going to make it to their desired destination because it has to go through a court proceeding and process. See, unfortunately, as we've gotten older, we've become more privy to some of these things, and we've seen someone pass away and their family having to go to court to have the house moved, and they have to have an executor named over the estate. And that house has to get moved from the person that passed away over to the new executive, to the new owner. But that's a process.
Mhm.
And if you pass away and you got some debt, you got some creditors like most of us have. You got a credit card that's outstanding. You got a car loan that's outstanding. Well, how are those things going to be paid? Because whether you hear or not, those people still want their money
Yeah.
and they're going to come knocking. And if you have a will, now you have to go through the legal court system of having those assets, especially real estate, be transferred over to the desired person. Well, now you've created a contestable situation.
Mm.
So that creditor can contest it because they want that money. So they want to force the sale of that piece of property. You got a cousin or a sister or a close family friend that said, no, 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 no. They said that I was going to get the house. You have a daughter that says, I was supposed to get it. So now you have people fighting over the assets. And if you're the one that's supposed to be the executor over the estate, what you now have to do is hire an attorney to serve on your behalf. And that's why I said that will still leave a bill. And we'll be right back after this break.
Welcome back to Closing Gap Podcast, Truth About Wealth. I am your host, Mr. Eddie Richardson, here with our other host and owner of Hamilton Wealth Advisors, Mr. Wilbur Hamilton. And you're tuned in to this episode, which is entitled The Handoff. We're talking about making sure that you have all of the proper documents and your faith aligned and you're being accountable to hand off everything properly to the next generation that comes behind you. Because if you don't, then the proverbial Uncle Sam is ready to take it all. Because legally, that's the way that our laws are set up. If you don't take advantage of the legal process for yourself while you are alive to make sure that you have everything in order properly, then the law is going to take it over. But you have options. And that's why we're here at Closing the Gap, is to give you the proper knowledge so that you can make wise decisions and not leave things to happenstance. Oftentimes, that's why our community is lacking in finances being passed on to the next generation. That's why Big Mama's house, Granddaddy's house is being dilapidated and being a blight in the neighborhood, is because while our parents were alive, they did not take the time to put things in order. But now you have the opportunity that you don't make the same mistake. You've complained about, man, if my mother had did this, if my father had did this, man, my granddad had this and that, but they didn't do X, Y, Z. You've been complaining about that for years. But what have you done to make sure that you don't repeat the cycle? We talk about generational curses oftentimes in the community, but we don't promote generational blessings as much as we should, because there are generational blessings. Curses can be broken, because curses are oftentimes just trends. Curses are ways that we have lacked accountability and we've been misaligned with God. Instead of doing what God needed us to do, we did what we wanted to do. Instead of being obedient to what God told us, we turned and changed. But like Wilbur said, Hezekiah was obedient. And in that story of Hezekiah, when he received that prophecy, as I told you earlier on the last segment, it seemed like it could have been bad news. But Hezekiah took it for good news. And he was active. He didn't sit back and complain. He didn't cry and say, oh God, why me? Why didn't this happen? Why are you coming to do this? He said, no. He took the time, got his house in order, and then talked to God after that. So what we want all of you to do is to do what 1 Corinthians chapter 14 says. It says, let all things be done decent and in order. And what is decent is to make sure that you don't lose what you have. What's in order is to make sure that you have all of the proper documentation for everything that you have. And sometimes what happens is, with what we have, Wilbur, we feel as though if it's not a certain amount, it's not worth handling correctly.
Yeah, and that's definitely a misrepresentation. And it's a lack of planning, lack of due diligence. I
Mhm.
mean, whatever you've worked hard for, you want it preserved.
Yeah.
You should want to make sure that you do everything to maintain what you work for, regardless of how much you think grandma house is worth. Grandma worked hard for that house,
Mhm.
so why not make sure that we can properly take care of the house and transfer the house? But that goes where some planning and some education has to happen from an individual standpoint. With the owners, with grandmama,
Mhm.
with mom and dad, with these individuals, because and I said it last segment, and I said how wills leave bills.
Mhm.
And we have to do a better job of making sure we're leaving some type of liquid cash to the next generation. Because, yes, we've done a decent job of leaving the house.
Mhm.
But if we don't leave no money with the house,
Mhm.
we can't pay the property taxes on the house.
Mhm.
We can't pay the maintenance and the upkeep on the house.
Mhm.
We can't pay the utility bills on the house. So
Mhm.
what happens? We end up losing the
Losing the
house
house.
anyway. So a lot of times, we like to say, well, I've done enough.
Mhm.
I did enough for my kids. They gonna get the house. I'm like, well, if you didn't leave them anything to be able to properly take care of the house, then they're not gonna have the house either.
Right.
They're not gonna even be in a situation where they can value the house, because they're gonna have to sell the house for whatever they
Mhm.
can get for it, because they don't
Mhm.
have the money to keep up the house.
Mhm.
Houses have a cost associated with them.
Yeah.
Real estate in general has a cost. Even if you have a flat piece of land with no structure on it, that piece of real estate still has a cost
Mm.
called property taxes.
Mm.
Property taxes still have to be paid. So if I don't leave you anything
Mhm.
to be able to take care of that property and pay the property taxes at minimum, then guess what's going to happen to that house? It's going to be taken.
Mm.
And on far too many occasions, we haven't done our due diligence from a planning perspective,
Mhm.
and we have not eased the process of
Mhm.
transition to the next generation. So we've been very comfortable with wills, and well, I'm just going to
Mhm.
deed my house to my child. Well, guess what? If you looked at utilizing a trust not just says who you want your stuff to go to, like
Okay.
a will does. Because the will gives you that option. The will
Mhm.
says who you want your assets to go to.
Mhm.
A trust says who you want your assets to go to, but when, where, and how you want to get them.
Okay.
Not only that, one of the most beneficial things about having a trust as opposed to a will is that you get to bypass the probate process.
Mhm.
And it's real easy to understand why. A trust is a legal document. If the trust is now the owner of the home, if I move my home out of my name
Mhm.
and into the name of my trust, well, because the trust is a living document, I mean, it is a document, it doesn't breathe air,
Yeah.
it don't die.
Mhm.
And if it don't die, that means there really is not a transference
Okay.
from one to the next. There's just a change in the trustee
Mm.
on the document.
Okay.
So while I'm living, obviously, I will be the trustee over my own trust.
Mhm.
In some trusts, you can name other people as trustees. But in most basic trusts, you can be the trustee of your own trust account.
Okay.
So you still have all the rights and all the control over your property.
Mhm.
But you also can name a successor trustee. So I can name my sons as the successor trustee. So they are the beneficiary recipient of the home.
Mhm.
Something happens to me and my wife, the house is still in the name of the trust. They just assume now a leadership role and a trustee role where now they can govern the house. So we don't have to worry about going through probate and someone coming contesting saying, well, know what? He owes me money. She
Mhm.
owes me money.
Mhm.
That money needs to be paid because I know that you have this asset in this home. I'm going to force you to sell it because I want to be compensated. Or if there's siblings that are arguing, we and it ain't just my family. We I'm sure that everybody family out there that somebody that passed away,
Yeah.
and grandmama passed away, and there's always somebody they want they cut of the pie.
Mhm.
It's somebody that they need the money a little bit more than the other.
Yeah.
They're saying, hey, that what's coming in. No, grandmama said I'm gonna get it. Well, what's gonna happen? And they're a little bit more engaged in the process
Mhm.
because they see some financial benefit and reward from the situation.
Mhm.
Well, that's probably the very person that don't need to be in charge. But that very person can also contest
Okay.
who receives the ownership of that particular property. That doesn't mean they're going to get
Get
it,
it. Right.
but they can contest it because you can go to court and contest a or a probated home. So it's one of those situations where we can avoid that by utilizing the trust, and there's no probate process.
Okay.
You can go argue with yourself
Mm-hmm.
because there's not a conversation that's going to be had because it has already been previously established and documented. I can leave my life insurance to my trust. And people say, I want to leave my assets to my son or to my daughter. I said, well, does your son or daughter have good financial habits?
Mm-hmm.
He said, well, I think by that time they should. Are we going to hope they're going to have
Right.
good habits by that time? Or are we going to move that life insurance policy into the trust?
Mm-hmm.
Let the trust own it, and then you name somebody as the trustee that you know is a good steward
Mm-hmm.
to govern those assets, to provide your son or daughter the benefit that you want them to have, not just when, but how
Yeah.
you want them to have it.
Mm-hmm.
Because you may say, you know what, you should be of age by the time you're 25 to be responsible enough. But just in case, there's going to be some criteria you need to meet in order to receive the benefits of this trust. You need to have a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be, pursuing some type of undergraduate degree if you don't have one and you're under the age of 22.
Yeah.
You need to be, not in a rehab facility
Mm-hmm.
if I'm going to give you these assets. So we can put these stipulations in place
Okay.
to ensure and help the success of the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
Because what 17, 18-year-old, all the way up to 25-year-old is going to be perfect in handling money
Mm-hmm.
if they were to receive it at that particular point in time?
Mm-hmm.
That most of us are still learning at that time. You may not have bad intentions, but you just don't have the knowledge and information to understand how to properly utilize
Mm-hmm.
those assets at this time.
So that means if I put a trust, I could also stipulate, okay, they need to work with Hamilton Wealth Advisors.
Yes, you can.
You can put those types of things in place.
You
So
can-
you can scale it from whatever age, because you don't know when you're going to die. So
Absolutely.
you can scale it from younger age. These are the things that need to happen. If it's at this age, this and these different phases.
You can be extremely detailed.
Okay.
You can say, you know what? I want you to get X amount of dollars at 21,
Mm-hmm.
at 25, and at 30. Or I want the funds to be utilized for these purposes. I have a clause in my trust, for example. If you don't work, you don't eat.
Mm-hmm.
My sons do not receive benefit from their trust if they're not working.
Mm-hmm.
But if they are working, they get a percentage paid to them based off of what they're earning.
Mm-hmm.
So they're incentivized
Yeah.
to go out
Mm-hmm.
and go to work.
Mm-hmm.
They're incentivized to go and be successful.
Mm-hmm.
They're incentivized to put themselves in a better situation because I don't want to make them reliant on me and the trust. I want them to be reliant on themselves, but I want to provide some help.
Mm-hmm.
I want to provide a opportunity to push them to be able to do more.
Yeah.
If I can help them get them a house that's a little bit nicer than the one they was going to be able to get on their own, well, now I want to do that because now that means that my grandkids are going to be in a nicer home and have a better situation.
Yeah.
So the goal is to put the next generation in a better position. On far too many occasions, I meet with people and they say, man, my kids are going to struggle because, ain't nobody help me. Well, why would you want to put somebody through the same thing that you went through?
Mm-hmm.
The whole goal is I want the next generation to be better
Yeah.
because we all going to struggle.
Yeah.
Hard work is not going to escape any of us.
That's true.
I don't care
That's
how
true.
blessed and
That's true.
successful you are.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to work hard and persevere and push yourself, past your comfort zones in every situation. I don't care how much money you have. But if I can make the path a little bit easier, if I can make the stress a little bit lighter, now you can focus in. We've all been in a situation where money is funny.
Mm-hmm.
How hard is it to focus when you got bills hanging on your head?
Yeah.
How hard is it to focus and be the best version of yourself
Mm-hmm.
when there's a lot of things going on around you that are outside of your control, even financially? Because some people inherit
Mm-hmm.
financial distress
Yeah.
because mom and daddy didn't do their due diligence.
Mhm.
They didn't set up a trust. So now they have to deal with family members fighting with them
Mhm.
over things that they didn't even ask for.
Yeah. Man. So with all of that said, right? That's good. So you can set up a trust. What about just beneficiaries? Is that if I have a beneficiary on my life insurance, is that contestable in court as well?
No, so
Or
and that's actually a great question because for a lot of people, they don't understand that you can have a will
mm-hmm,
and you can have a beneficiary on a will.
mm-hmm,
And that can be completely different from the beneficiary on your life insurance policy. Life insurance policies do not go through probate.
mm-hmm,
Financial accounts do not enter into the probate process unless you fail to name a beneficiary. If you set up your bank account and when you opened it up, you skipped the beneficiary section, or when you did your life insurance policy, you didn't put in the beneficiary because you wasn't sure. Well, I don't know who I want to leave it to. Well, I'm not married yet. I don't know about my mama, my sister, my brother, my cousin. I don't know who I want to have my stuff. And you leave it blank.
mm-hmm.
If something happens to you, it does go to your estate.
Okay.
Now it's tied up in the probate process in order to figure out what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you have a named beneficiary on your life insurance policy, for example, or any of your financial accounts, that bypasses probate and it also supersedes your trust. And it will still go to whoever the named beneficiary is.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, I've seen situations
Yeah.
where people have been married and divorced and they didn't change the beneficiary on their insurance policy. And the new spouse is now upset because the old spouse
Mm-hmm.
is still the recipient and beneficiary of that new money.
Wow. That's interesting.
All because you failed to keep your house in order.
Yeah.
You got to double check. So we saying you got a plan,
Mm-hmm.
and then you got to review that plan.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of the review process.
Mm-hmm.
We got to make sure that everything that you have is going to go where you want it to go and to who you want it to go to. So you can have a trust. You can establish a trust.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't retitle your assets into the name of the trust, then your trust does not own anything. It is an empty document.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to take your accounts, your real estate, your assets and holdings, and they must be retitled into the trust name in order for them to be owned by the trust.
Got it.
And, one thing that we have to understand, because most people in our community we have more people that have what's called qualified retirement accounts, or IRAs and 401ks, than we do people who have just brokerage accounts.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to understand that, because I have a lot of people come to me and say, I want to put my retirement account in my trust.
Okay.
Well, you can't put your retirement account in your trust. It has to stand outside of the trust.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why is you got to pay income taxes on it first.
Got it.
Once the money comes out,
Mm-hmm.
you can now structure a separate account and have that titled into the trust name.
Yeah.
But retirement accounts can't be put inside of a trust.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why the conversations have to happen and need to be had, because a lot of times we don't know what we can do. We don't know what options are available because we haven't sat down and had the conversation so an evaluation can take place. So you'll know what your options are.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, when you know better, you do better.
Yeah.
Go
That's
sit
the
down and
premise.
talk to
That's
somebody.
the premise. Yeah.
If it's not me, find a financial advisor,
Mhm.
hopefully a
Mhm.
person of color that looks like me, because I want the
Yeah.
money to stay in our community.
Yeah. That's
So
correct.
find somebody that looks like us
Mhm.
to have a conversation with, so you can get the information you need so you can properly structure your life.
Mhm. Mhm.
Why do you want to leave things to chance and put people coming behind you in a situation where they got to fight just to get access to what you were supposed to leave them to?
Yeah.
How many times people are having to go through the court process?
Mhm.
And of course, we know going to court is not cheap, because now you have to hire an attorney.
Yeah.
The average cost of probating a state in Alabama is $6,000 to $8,000. So you didn't leave me any money to probate the estate.
Mhm.
Now I'm in court fighting against somebody else
Mhm.
who won't to take the estate because they want the house
Mm-hmm.
because you owe them some money.
Mm-hmm.
So now that means that attorney got to work double time, which means more billable hours,
Mm-hmm.
which means more money out of pocket, which leads to a number of situations, circumstances in our communities where we lose the assets because we ain't got the money to fight.
Man. So we're really fumbling the bag is what we're doing and not properly handing it off.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're doing. We're using football analogy and the handoff. The quarterback, which is you, whoever is listening, is the one that has the ball in their hands, and you are responsible for what the running backs, the wide receivers will get, and those are your descendants, those that children and your children's children, the generations that come after you. It's important that you hand things off properly, that they can take it and they can run with it. That's the same thing it talks about, when it talks about write the plan and make it plain,
Yes.
so that he who sees it can read and they can run with it, right? So we don't want any fumbles. And matter of fact, we've had far too many fumbles in
Yes.
our community. And now it's time to recover the fumble so that we can run the play properly. We may be on second or third down, maybe even fourth down. Some people may be on, but it doesn't matter what down of life we're in. We're not out.
Yes.
And the game is still here to be played, still to be functioned. And so we want everybody to make sure that you take the time to review these documents that Mr. Hamilton has just talked about, because it's very important, and understanding that key of getting a trust laid out. But if you don't have the finances right now to do that, make sure what you can do yourself in the immediate time is checking all of your beneficiaries and making sure that those things are laid out properly.
Yes.
And that everybody knows who they are. But the other thing in checking the beneficiaries is also letting the beneficiaries know,
yes,
that these are the things that you have laid out. So our people perish for a lack of knowledge. But on this show, this episode, you will live and will not die. Why? Because you received the knowledge, and we have no doubt that you are going to take the handoff that we've just given to you, and you're going to run with it, and you're going to do everything that God wants you to do with your faith life. You're going to do everything that God wants you to do with your financial life, and you're going to hand everything off to the next generation, that they're going to be better than you were. And we'll see you on the next episode.